Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
No, but we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Jabby's back.
Back again.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend.
Guess who's
Tell
back?
Guess
Guess who's back?
Guess who's back? Hey, it's Justin and Abby back again.
Hello. I have felt so loved by all the people checking on us to see if we're okay in the past few months, because we have had hit or miss podcast
As far as
scheduling.
you and I together, and then just having our guests on.
But I was like, no, we're actually doing really good.
Are you guys?
Are you guys getting divorced?
Yeah.
No, mom and dad are fine.
We've had that conversation, I think, already once on this podcast.
Are we divorced?
No, I mean about about us doing separate things, but we've had a few more podcasts where we've been doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh boy! It's
But I'm
good to be back
excited.
with
I
you.
kind of
Are
like.
you?
I kind of like you,
I like that you kind of like me.
and I kind of
It's
like
better
that-
than nothing. 15 years into marriage, I kind of like you. Most people 15 years in are like, I don't like you. So I'll take kind of any day of the week. You're reasonable to be around.
Oh,
I have mediocre feelings for you.
I just think that's what every girl has longed to hear her whole life.
Yeah, I can't wait till one day I'm madly in love and he tells me how much
Mediocrely likes me.
Yeah, that's real. What are we doing today, girl? Do you have anything fun to tell anyone before we get started about your life?
I'm just trying to pivot because I was already planning where I was going to go.
Oh.
Do you have anything fun to say? You start.
Well, I'm getting pretty excited because there's a couple Ninja Turtle vans that I'm about to get. My collection is about to overfloweth. Yeah. Those are supposed to be delivered this year. So
How exciting.
And then there's a sewer diorama set that they're about to release sometime
Oh.
this year. So that'll be a big things happening in the Stoneball world.
You also have Legos that you're building.
This is where
these kids are becoming toy collectors.
Oh,
like
I
you're
know.
living
They're getting
your best
really
life.
excited. They're like, Uncle Justin has toys. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's a good age.
Yeah, no, this is where most couples would be telling about their kids and how their kids are doing that stuff. I'm like, you know what I'm doing since we don't have kids. I'm a drawing child.
That is adorable.
Yeah, I'm about to do some a men's retreat this next weekend, Wild Courage retreat, and that's going to be really incredible. We've got it's all packed out, sold out, and like last year when we did this, I'm expecting some really amazing things. And actually, we had a space for a handful of our podcast, Connected Life men, and they
showed up.
And in fact, they had to turn a bunch of people away because they didn't get in fast enough. So I'm really excited to meet whoever's going to be showing up there for that.
Well, if we're just talking about things I like, we are leading the school, the Life Consulting Masterclass School, and it has been so much fun this year. I've liked it way more than last year.
To all you students out there,
I kid.
It's not you, it's me.
Well, it's actually true. I'm just really enjoying it. It's so beautiful to watch people open up in love towards each other, towards themselves, to see people learn their own things and get free from shame and start to have compassion on themselves.
Ahas.
Yeah, it's just, I'm saying that because we had class today and you led for an hour and it went really good. I did a different thing for another session for 2 hours.
Last night I met with our second years but had both incredible time in both of our home groups. And
I think it's just so encouraging to see on the planet there's people who want to go on the journey of learning love and learning to connect.
Yeah, and it's fun to me to see that we're building, like the Connected Life, people are getting actually connected from the connected
I
life. And so
know.
there's a culture that's getting created out of that. And then there's a more intimate culture that's building around our life consulting masterclass.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, it's like this extended family that's building out, and where everyone is building their own deep wells of relationships.
Mhm.
And you can see that like these are lifelong things that they're changing each other's lives as they're participating in these ways. And it's just some of the coolest stuff, things that we dreamt for when we were like in our 20s and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love
like
it. So that's something I'm excited about.
Great. Well,
I'm not even pitching it.
no,
I'm just happy.
saying.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
be with people whose hearts are wide open. I just think I've been noticing this about life. The times that I feel more fulfilled is when I'm present and open, and when I'm engaging around people and we can open together. Like
yeah,
we can share a moment of authentic connection, or we can, whether it's we enjoyed the same food together and get excited, or we have a moment where one of us gets honest or real about something, or we connect over a shared experience or compassion. That the ability to feel connection with people,
yeah.
I think is intoxicating. It's why we called it the connected life, because I think it is what makes life fulfilling, is to be able to be connected enough to yourself that you can connect to others and the life right in front of you.
I think while you're talking, this plays a role in what we're talking about today. But I noticed that like there's this beautiful flow where so many people are letting go of their relationship with resistance in our life consulting masterclass. Resistance to the reality of what their circumstances are, resistance to the reality of their heart posture on things, how they've affected the world around them. Like they're letting go. Like I can feel such an ease for them to get change because they've let go of that relationship with resistance, and they've actually entered into this sense of acceptance.
Well, I think that seems too black and white for me. They haven't let go of their relationship with resistance.
I'm saying they
are on the journey.
They're on the journey, but yes, whatever.
Well, I never ever let go of it entirely, and I don't want people to have unrealistic standards, because if you're like, one day I'll let go of resistance entirely, then you'll always be feeling like a failure.
Sure, I could word it better, but the whole point is that the
yes,
wall.
You could. I'm just kidding.
The wall is coming down of resistance, and I can see it, and there's such a receptivity to new realities, and I'm watching them just accept what is, and they're in the process of that. And when you get into that space, it's so easy to get to your dreams and your desires, because all of a sudden you're not resisting yourself.
Yeah, well, let's talk about us, because I think we're going to talk about in this podcast resistance versus acceptance. And I will just start with reading the Serenity Prayer, which is a famous prayer. I actually don't even know who said it, to be honest.
I mean, if you read it right now, you'll have been the one that said it.
I know it's something they say in AA a lot, but God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
I love this so much, because typically what I see is people don't accept the things they can't change.
Yes.
And they give up on the things they can change.
That's absolutely true.
That's normally what happens. So we fight, we resist so hard something we don't want. I'm just going to give a practical example.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So in the past, and I know a lot of people have this, resisting conflict. I want to avoid conflict at all costs. I don't want to have a conflict. I don't want to be in a conflict. So a great idea would be if we're having a conversation and you start to misunderstand me, I would immediately have emotions if I'm trying to resist conflict of oh no, I got to stop this right now before actually I'm describing your entire process in our marriage. Oh no, I've got to stop this before it becomes a conflict. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I start doing weird things to try to control it from going into a conflict.
Yeah.
Versus what I would say is something that we've both been learning to accept, which is conflict is inevitable.
Yes.
Misunderstandings are inevitable. There's no way not to. You have a whole list of triggers and language and what that means to you. I have a whole list of words and what it means to me, and triggers from my story and my history. And there's no way for us to not have conflict.
Yeah.
But if we're trying to resist it, then let's say I'm trying to resist conflict, then I would have shame every time conflict comes up. I'd feel like, oh,
Yes.
see, we failed again. If my goal is to not have conflict, then having conflict would mean we failed.
Yeah.
If my goal is to avoid it at all costs, then I'm going to feel like hopeless about it.
Yeah.
So acceptance. So most of us, we try to do whatever we can to avoid it. We try to shut other people's feelings down, their words down. We try to perform. We try to fawn and do what people want and make them like us. Like we do a lot of behavior to try to avoid conflict. Whereas acceptance feels like I just accept that conflict is inevitable, that miscommunications are inevitable.
Well, there's certain realities that are inevitable across the board. Like people are going to die.
Yeah.
Conflicts are going to happen. Misunderstandings are going to happen. Like a lot of times the things that are part of the human experience, there is pain, right? And
you're going to have to process through hard things.
Right. And I think that we all have an unconscious belief in some area that normal parts of the human experience can be navigated around.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can dodge that. Like I'll be the one person
Yes.
that doesn't have to have pain, or that doesn't have to have conflict, or that doesn't have to have my day ruined because a child is vomiting and diarrheaing everywhere. Like,
well, like exactly what you just said. I genuinely believed if I fawned the best, I could avoid conflict.
right.
Like I could be special enough so that people never felt mad at me.
Or if I could love somebody enough,
Mm-hmm.
people would be happy. Like if I was just loving enough.
Like if I was a good enough kid, I could have made my parents happy. I was talking about this in counseling today, in my counseling session with my counselor. And I was thinking about me as a kid, and I did not accept like mom and dad are unhappy.
Right.
And they're going to be fighting for however long they fight for.
Mm-hmm.
And that, if I would have accepted it, I could have detached like I'm good or bad from it. Like I thought I'm bad because I can't stop them from fighting.
Right.
But if I would have just accepted mom and dad are going to fight,
Yeah.
this is what it is.
And this doesn't have anything to do with me. This
doesn't mean, this isn't a reflection that I'm failing.
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance, what that can help remove shame.
Yeah.
But again, now it doesn't mean that I become powerless to it. Like mom and dad are fighting. There's nothing I can do. I'm hopeless.
Right.
That's not it. It's mom and dad are fighting. I can't fix them.
Right.
But what can I do? Like I could have processed my feelings
Mm-hmm.
about what it was like being around that much conflict. I could have found ways to have boundaries. Like there were things I could have done. All of the actions I tried to do were futile.
Yeah. I've found that a lot of clients come in like around the pain point. Like we as humans are high avoiders of pain. It's a conversation we understand with the connected
all
life.
are.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
We don't want to feel it. And so when pain ends up coming up inside of their life, there's an intensified anger, dissatisfaction, hopelessness, right? Because they've given themselves the impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
Which is I want to make sure something doesn't happen that is inevitable inside of my life. And instead
I want to make sure I never feel pain.
Right.
Instead of I know pain will happen.
Right. And then the question becomes, what do I do about the pain? Is there practical strategies? Now that I've accepted, all right, pain is going to happen inside of my life, and probably way more frequently than I would like it to happen, right? It's going to happen. Or betrayal with relationships. Betrayal is going to happen.
Yeah.
So I can either spend my entire life building walls against every human being and deciding that everyone's a villain, or I can go, oh, I'm going to make friendships and I'm going to trust that I'm going to get betrayed in some of these friendships. Maybe not all of them, but there's going to be some levels of betrayal throughout all of my friendships, throughout my life. There's going to be some levels that hit. And the question becomes, am I powerless to that? Or do I now okay, if I accept it's going to happen, do I have ways to navigate conflict? Mm-hmm. Do I have ways to process grief and pain? Mm-hmm. Do I have practical ways to communicate my experiences? Totally. Can I build a life around a very real human reality?
Yeah. There was a quote somebody posted this week from 2019 for me, but I think this is great.
Ooh, I bet it was so smart.
Honestly, I was impressed. I didn't remember saying it. It says, we think if we can control enough, you'll never have to go through pain again. Learn that you can handle the pain. Build a history where you gloriously process the pain. So it's the idea of like, instead of trying to avoid the thing that is inevitable, choose to use your power for what you do have power over.
Yeah. I think that one thing that I've done inside of my life is an inventory of what am I scared of? And then I've asked myself, is it real that I should have this fear of this happening? Like in the sense of, is it real that I should have some level of resistance? Because fear will tell me like the things that I'm resisting usually.
Yep,
I'm
absolutely.
scared of something. What is that? That's
Yes.
a resistance towards some experience. And then I've examined those things. I've been like, well, the truth is that very well could happen. I mean, it's like a conversation going back to years ago in our marriage where I had this big fear of you leaving me and walking out on me, right? And so I did an internal job where I sat down and I said, I accept that that's a very real possibility that Abby could leave this marriage. And now I'm going to accept that as a real possibility. And instead of being scared of it, I'm going to go on a journey of figuring out how to build up my own personal fortitude of self-love, my relationship with people. Like, can I build a life right here and now that even if she does walk away, I still have something inside of me and an experiences around me that can support me through that.
Yeah. And that's not, I mean, like some people could think that is living from fear.
Right.
You weren't doing it in self-protection.
No.
You were actually doing it out of the like, the concept of, I could be okay if my fear happens.
That's exactly what it is.
It's the mindset of, this fear could happen and I could be okay.
And navigate through it. Yeah.
Well, I think about that like with Courtney. She's been on our podcast a lot before and she's in a lot of our programs. I remember her coming to me and her dad had just gone into the hospital and they were testing him for cancer. And she's like, my greatest fear is that he's going to die. And I am a firm believer in acceptance. And so I wasn't like, he's not going to die. He's going to be fine. Because that isn't actually helpful.
Right. It wasn't like you were willing to go into denial about this thing to try and medicate what was going on for the moment.
I also wasn't going to say he is going to die because there was zero certainty that we had.
Right.
I said, there's a chance that he might die. I mean, he will die inevitably.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a chance he might die sooner than you were hoping. What you need to know is that you'd be okay if that happened. What you need to know is, because your deepest fear is not that. Your deepest fear is your belief that you won't be okay if that happens.
Yeah.
And there was a level of acceptance that she got to from that. And it wasn't hopelessness. She was still very like hopeful about the situation, but she was able to be present through the process and actually have really good conversations with him and really bond, because she wasn't trying to deny that might happen.
Right.
She wasn't trying to fight it. She wasn't trying to resist it. And I think, and that's the idea, starting to notice our internal resistance and starting to notice what acceptance looks like. I know for me, I was having a conversation with Pizza yesterday, and she was saying that this is something she does when someone's doing conflict with her or having emotions with her or having emotions about their own life, but in front of her. She'll literally say something like, they're sad. It's okay that they're sad. Like to herself. She doesn't say that out loud. That'd be real weird.
A lot of them, they are sad.
I'd be like, what is going on? Yeah. No. But like she'll say it to herself, because if there's acceptance, then she's not going to try to control them out of their sadness or try to get them out of their sadness. She can then just be with them in their sadness. Yeah. And she was talking about the other day, they woke up, Moses was projectile vomiting all over their hotel room. Well, they didn't wake up. Sorry. They were awake and they were about to hang out, if you know what I mean, parents. and Johnny went out to grab something from the other room. And that was right when Moses projectile vomited over everything. And so you can either be like, oh my gosh, this always happens. And the kids ruin everything. I'm so out of control. I don't want to be doing this. I'd rather be doing that. And grief is okay. It's fine to go through grief. But eventually what they did was get to acceptance, which is, this is what it is.
Yeah. Our plans for marital bliss over here have been absolutely interrupted. And
Yep.
right now,
Marital bliss. I had to know what you're talking about. You're talking about them. Yeah. Our marital bliss plans have been interrupted.
And this just ain't gonna happen. I accept that this is not gonna happen tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And we might be spending the rest of the night cleaning up vomit and taking care of this child and settling into the reality of it. And then there's that posture of power that suddenly takes place, because now it's like, instead of me also feeling powerless to the thing that keeps happening, I'm like, okay, I've accepted it's happened. Now I have plans that I'm enacting to navigate through it.
Yeah. So acceptance, I think, looks a lot like if you're single, accepting I'm single. And that doesn't mean I'm bad because
Right.
I'm single. Or if it's like, let's say you're getting divorced and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm getting divorced. This isn't what I thought it would look like, but it is what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then what acceptance does is it allows you to move through an emotion, to actually grieve out an emotion. A few years ago, we did a podcast series on sickness, you know,
Yeah.
me being sick and the journey of that. And I remember having to process so much with my counselor. I had never accepted that I was sick.
Yeah.
I was always like living in an escape, like I'm about to be healed. I'm about to find the solution. I'm about to figure this out. And so it was a constant denial of what was,
Right.
for the idea that I was about to be somewhere.
Yeah.
And so
It was very tormenting.
yeah, because it was like hopes up, hopes down, hopes up, hopes down. Like I'd be like, oh, any day now, I'll figure this out with the doctor. Oh, it hasn't got figured out with the doctor. Everything's horrible. I'm never going to get out. It like kept me in a powerless state.
Yeah.
Whereas acceptance looked like me being like, okay, I'm actually sick right now. And my life is limited. How do I come alive within these limitations?
Mm-hmm.
Not how do I get out of my body and imagine a world without the limitations.
Right.
How do I actually accept, yeah, I do have limitations. What is it that I need to do to thrive within these limitations?
And it's like that sense of like, this might not always be this way. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, but
Acceptance isn't finality.
yeah,
It didn't mean I will always be this sick.
right. It was, this is where I'm at in this moment. And I'm going to figure out how to come alive in the moment of what this is and be present with it and live in the grace of what is available to me for this current circumstance.
What are some of the places you've had to embrace acceptance and let go of resistance?
Well, I think in the past there was a strong not being willing to accept that my life wasn't going the direction that I had planned for it to be.
This is a big one for everyone.
You know, because there was a sense of like, no, I have this plan in the back of my head that I'm going to do this job. I'm going to work this way and I'm going to get to this place. And it was even hopes inside of Hollywood. And then when it wasn't in Hollywood, it was like how my life is going to take off and where my financial status is supposed to be by a very specific time.
Like by this age, my finances should be here.
Yeah. And as those ticking time bombs were counting down, I was like, that's not realistic unless there's some miraculous thing that happens. So
Right.
I have this idea that there's always potential for dramatic, miraculous shifts in life because I've seen them. I've been part of them that seemingly happened out of nowhere that I didn't quite do anything to make happen. Right. But I was just like, all right, I'm not there. What do I need to like let go of inside of that? And does that mean that it's never available to me? And I had to like go to like this place of like, that doesn't mean it's never available. It just might not be through the expectations that I have and how it's going to be. And even if I don't get there, can I accept that my life was valuable, is and will be if these set of circumstances don't unfold the way I ideally would like them to be?
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because we're talking about an idea of having truth and tension.
Yes.
When I accept the current reality of a circumstance that's being played out, I'm also holding this other truth of like, yeah, there's possibilities that all of that can change, that can evolve. It's like people who are at a certain, we were at a certain financial status where at times where I was so hopeless and I was like, I kept like trying to turn my head away from my bank account.
Oh, totally. That's a great example of resistance. You avoided looking at the bank account.
Yes.
That is resistance.
And part of my season of acceptance, even in that, is when I sat down with and opened up my bank account every day. And I directly looked at that number in that bank account. And I let myself get hit with the reality of like, if we have one major medical problem, if we have one problem with the truck or something like that, there's not going to be anything here for that.
We have one problem with our one car.
Yeah.
Between the two of us.
Yeah. Like we're going to, but that was me going like, oh, I accept that this is where the finances are right here today. And then it even gave me permission. Like once I could accept where I was at, then I could even have dreams of where I wanted to go. And I could break down.
Instead of avoidance.
Correct. And I could get rid of the fear in that avoidance, that fear that was actually gridlocking me in the ability to be present with creative ideas, taking next steps.
Well, one of the things you're talking about is letting go of fantasy in order to actually have real like dreams.
Yeah.
So there's a fantasy idea. Let's say our finances is a great example. When we were broke.
Very broke.
When we weren't in a good place financially, you wanted to avoid looking at it. I just forgot entirely what we were talking about.
And I wanted to avoid the feelings that came with inadequacy that I felt about not being able to make that a bigger number, especially when I didn't play a role. There were seasons where I played a big role and then I didn't play any role. And we're living off your $15 an hour, like job as a receptionist.
It's miraculous we did that.
Yeah. Right. And so also the other thing was, as I accepted that this is where I was at, then the emotions that were inside of me about my inadequacy, like you said, the shame had to come to the surface. I'm like, this is where we're at. Okay, what do I actually feel about that? Oh, I feel like worthless because I'm not adding to this and I don't know how to make the next step currently. And then I had to feel my way through that and get some new truths internally.
But instead of like, if you don't accept it, you just get gridlocked. You just emotionally get locked up and then you don't see a pathway forward. I was giving this example in the school today. I was saying resistance is like keeping the door closed to an emotion. Like, let's say you're avoiding our finances. So you have locked the front door to looking at our finances, or feeling like our finances are not okay. So that feeling is pounding on the door all the time.
Yes.
And resistance is keeping the door closed. And we think that's keeping it out. But what it's really doing is keeping it right there, pounding all the time. So you're not actually ever moving forward. And so what I said is you often have to open the door, let that thing in, accept it, and then it can go out the back door.
It's kind of like it
can flow through and out. Like I think of resistance as like building a dam in a river. If you allow acceptance to happen, the things will naturally flow through and out. So like as you accepted, this is where our finances are. I feel inadequate. You were able to move through inadequacy and not get stuck there.
Right. It's almost like
instead of having inadequacy banging at your door, because that's what it happens when you avoid the emotion of finances. You just have the thing in the background, that background voice just saying, you're inadequate. You're not a good enough husband. You're not doing well enough.
And it's almost like this. So I imagine it like protesters, protesters show up at a house. So if you get one protester that starts protesting at your house and you welcome them in and deal with them and calm them, they're off your front porch.
Yeah.
But if you leave that protester at the front porch, people are like going by and like, what's the issue here? And then another one's like, I'll take a sign. I'll take a sign. And you keep like the protesters. And so it's like those emotional protesters that all of a sudden start building up like condemnation, shame, guilt, whatever it happens to be. And
fear, hopelessness.
And they're all on your front step, picketing and protesting. You're like, it's supposed to be a peaceful protest. There's nothing peaceful about this. And then, so it, like you said, that flow allows it to actually be dealt with and moved straight through as there's some acceptance there.
And so when you were able to accept that that's where we were at, and then you're able to feel your inadequacy. And then what happened?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, I was able to settle into the season I was in. I was able to have more clarity and be like, okay, actually we are being provided for. There's going to be grace if something happens. Right now, there's something being worked out inside of me. What is the thing today that I'm supposed to work on? Right. And so then I could connect with the things that were supposed to be developed inside of me each and every day. And I was just like, and part of it was also, I was able to work on this concept of provision. Like part of provision was that you were working, and part of provision was randomly when people didn't know about financial areas where we're at, where they'd give gifts or something like that would happen, or refunds or returns would happen. And you're like, how did this just happen? Right. But there was miraculous provision for the necessary things that were there. And something got rewired inside of me in that journey.
Yeah. Which was like accepting what is and going on the day by day journey. I think
yes,
if you can like accept, like I'm in a lot of this would be like, I'm in a hard season, or like one of the things I've thought about self-acceptance is self-acceptance of like letting go of unrealistic standards. Like I accept that I'm never going to miraculously change all my behaviors in a month. Like I accept that it normally takes me about 3 years to really get a concept from something I'm just learning about to something I can implement well in my life.
Yes. And like, that's a natural reaction. Almost. Yeah.
I have accepted that, like, I would say, a few years ago, my life really, really blew up, like 6 years ago. And I remember so much resistance. I was like, I want to be out of this season. I want to be better. And I've talked about this before about pillar crushing seasons where the main foundational pillars that held up your life get removed and it feels like your whole world is shaking. And this is typically what people do. The same thing that I did. I need to get out of the season. When is it going to change? I'm looking for the moment that will prove that the season's over. And I can't tell you how many people on processes will be like, I thought this season was over, but it's still going on. I thought that everything was shifting. I thought, and I'm like, that's not actually acceptance. If you're doing everything you can to get out of it, it will be hope deferred if you're not out of it. And so acceptance to me looked like, I don't know how long this healing process will be. I don't know how long it will take for me to come back together from the trauma I went through. I don't know. I can accept myself as being a work in progress. I can accept myself before I'm finished. Resistance is I should already be fixed. I already need to be done. And it's this idea of, I think at the root of it, acceptance is not avoiding pain. And honestly, half the pain decreases by just naming it and saying you're not going to avoid it.
Yeah.
It's way harder when I'm wrestling with something. It takes way more energy than when I just stop the wrestle and I'm like, okay, have a seat.
Yeah. I do want to add this to the conversation about acceptance because, and we're talking about the empowerment aspect of this conversation, because there are people who would come into my office and they're just like, that's just the way life is. I just accept that this is just the way life is. And that's not a conversation about true acceptance and empowerment. That's a conversation about defeat oftentimes.
Which is what I love about the serenity prayer. It's like, give me the ability to see the things I can't change, but the ability to see the things I can.
Yes. And that to me is a big portion of this type of acceptance is it's going, I can't change. I can see what I actually can't change. It is not possible to stop this kid from throwing up.
Totally.
This lawsuit that's just been pulled out against me.
Hold on. That idea in my head made me laugh so hard because I was like, what if you like try to shove your hand on its face to try to keep the throw up inside?
It just keeps going out. Yeah. You might be in a season where it's like, currently am in a lawsuit and I can't get out of this lawsuit. I've accepted that I will now be walking through the journey of navigating what a lawsuit looks like. Yeah. But I'm going to engage the lawsuit in a powerful manner and figure out solutions and how I get to grow as a person and develop in my own heart and develop my skills and my abilities and relationships. And stuff like that. So
it's not a personal example, but yes,
it
is. You said it, so I didn't want everybody writing in like, "What lawsuit are you in?"
I'm saying if that was you, and
yeah. I think that exactly what you're saying. Like when I accepted my timeline for healing might not acceptance to me is I don't know how long this will take. So how do I come alive now? How do I come alive before I'm out of the pillar crushing season?
Yeah.
How do I come alive before circumstances in my life change? How do I come alive before everything feels like it lines back up or I feel put back together? Acceptance always leads me to the question, let's say I have a friend who's frustrated that they're still single. So acceptance would be like, the truth is I'm single and that's just what is true right now. Then it can be like, how do I come alive in my singleness? And then you can also say, okay, what are things I can do to move towards starting to date? You can hold both of those if it comes from the emotion of acceptance. And what I have found is acceptance and desperation are at odds.
Mm.
So, and what I have found is I typically bounce between the two of them. I'm really working to learn acceptance, but it is counterintuitive to me. So a great example would be like being sick. And there are times that I feel desperation to not be sick.
Right.
Yeah, I'm in so much pain or there's something going on in my body that's so rough. I desperately want it to be over.
Yeah.
That desperation, though, typically ends with me just feeling more hopeless and more despair. So I often have to reframe back to acceptance. This is what is now. How do I come alive here?
Yeah.
How do I be kind to myself here? How do I nurture myself here? How do I walk through this process? So part of that for me would be like, I'm not going to think about the future and if I'm sick forever, because that will feel overwhelming to me. I'm just going to look at what do I have capacity to do today? I can be really gracious to myself for what I can and can't do. I can be really kind to myself with boundaries. I can be really it's the journey of acceptance. And so I bounce between acceptance and desperation. But the more I learn acceptance, the more free I feel. I don't feel defeated by it. And if you are in acceptance, like Justin was saying, like, I'll never find a spouse. I've just accepted it. I'll never have a career that's fulfilling. I've just accepted it. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah. Because it's like, no, I currently don't have a spouse and this is where I'm at. And I accept that this is where I'm at. And what am I going to do with where I'm at in this area of not having a spouse? How am I going to get my connection needs filled? How am I going to go on a journey of potentially meeting people?
And how am I going to feel valuable? Like, I think a huge part of the acceptance journey is, how do I feel valuable? So like, if my kids are throwing up and so I couldn't clean the house, how do I feel valuable if I have an unclean house?
Yeah.
If I don't want to be single, but I am currently now, how do I feel valuable while I'm single? If I want to have already figured out all of my emotional health, but I haven't figured that out yet, how do I feel? Like, it's learning to connect to love now. We have an all-loving source who deeply cares about us, whose eyes of love never turn from us.
Yeah.
And the idea is, I want to tune into that, the voice of unconditional love, the presence of unconditional love in whatever circumstance I'm in, so that I can be free to let go of the resistance. Yeah.
Speaking again of resistance. So resistance and denial are two words that I think go hand in hand.
Yeah, they definitely can.
Really, a lot of resistance is simply the denial of facts that are happening. I don't want to look at the fact that my bank account is low. I don't want to look at the fact that I'm getting a divorce. I don't want to look at the fact that friendships are falling apart. I don't want to look at the fact that I'm losing my job. These are just facts, right? And so a lot of resistance is summed up in denial, and there's different expressions of resistance. But when we are living in relationship with this kind of resistance, resistance, I think some people associate the word resistance with action. Again, we're talking about there's empowered things to be done. Again, acceptance isn't passivity. Acceptance is a connection to reality and then a proactive take on how am I going to navigate the thing that's right in front of me. Right. So, but going back to this idea of resistance, when we're in this resistance energy, what we end up often doing is we become just, how do I put it in a nice way, miserable people to be around.
Totally.
Because what happens is this resistance becomes a relationship with unhappiness,
Mm-hmm.
because we, again, going back to, we've created a very powerless circumstance for ourselves. Like, this thing is happening whether I like it or not. And now I've given myself the impossible task, and now I'm failing at it, and I don't like it and I don't want it. So every time it keeps like it keeps knocking at my doorstep, I'm angry that it's knocking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to
Exactly.
go away. It is knocking. Why am I still angry that it keeps
Mm-hmm.
knocking on the front of my door?
Mm-hmm.
How about just go, you're here at my front door. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what happens is that there a breakdown starts happening in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So it overflows into like perpetuating worse circumstances for myself, because now I become grumpy with my spouse, my children, my friends, or I become, I turtle, I go inward all of a sudden to
Mm-hmm.
avoid, and I've disconnected from people. So I start removing solutions out of my life unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my emotional reaction, because of my resistance, I end up disconnecting from the very sources that are meant to make me feel not alone, to help me to feel loved, and to help me to feel settled, right? And to help me feel ultimately empowered, because like the concept of connection and love around me is what helps me navigate the hardest trials and tribulations,
Mm-hmm.
because those connections say, again, I am not alone.
Yes.
And so when I'm not alone, peace overtakes my body. I have an easier ability to connect to clarity and wisdom, because fear's not overriding everything, because I'm not having this blaring thing say, you're abandoned, you're abandoned, you're abandoned. Again, so part of, like, as we come out of the resistance energy, we then begin to be a better version of ourselves, and we're able to maintain the relational connections that are going to help us to navigate through our most difficult times.
Well said.
Yeah, I'm smart.
You are.
Yes.
Wow.
That's what my mama tells me.
And your wifey.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, she just said it.
Yeah, she did.
Literally. One of the things that what you're talking about inspired this thought of, like, I really work for hopeful acceptance.
Yeah.
So I was thinking earlier when you were talking about, like, the truth is people will betray me in my life.
Yeah.
I used to feel that fear. People are going to betray me. And what it made me do is lock up in self-protection all the time. And, like, what do I do to prevent people from betraying me? And I can't trust anyone. And so I started trying to control all the things I can't control.
Yes.
Right? Like trying to control me, trying to control people, trying to control that I pick the right people, and it kept me in a loop of fear and self-fulfillment. And so one of the acceptance for me is, yeah, there will be people that we part ways, or that I feel like misunderstood me, or that hurt me or betray me. But I am learning more and more to be connected to love all the time. I have begun creating safety inside of myself, love inside of myself, a pathway to love. And so in the past, the fear of betrayal was that could take love away from me.
Yeah.
But the thing I do have power over is connecting to love. The thing I do have power is growing towards love. So the less I've had fear about betrayal, and the more I've accepted that could happen, I've also gone on the journey of connecting more and more to a source of love where I can let down my guards. I can let down my walls, because I feel more grounded and safe in love. And I thought I needed circumstances to help me feel more grounded and safe in love. And what I've learned is that's not actually true. I don't need 5,000 people to love me in order for me to feel lovable and worthy. In fact, if lots of people don't understand me, I found this to be true. There's been several seasons where I've had people actively against me.
Yeah.
And I've actually found a deeper connection to love in those seasons, because I've had to engage. What do you say about me when people are misunderstanding me? Love, what do you think about me when people don't get how this is?
And do I see me? Do I see my heart? And is that enough? Does my opinion about my intentions and who I am, does that have a bigger weight than everyone else's that I'm giving weight to?
Which is like the concept of Courtney when her dad did die. she was connected to him and to love in a way that was really powerful. So whenever she looks back on that, she has had to go through healing for it because it's traumatizing watching someone die from cancer.
Yeah.
And she also looks back and says, that was one of the sweetest seasons for me. I felt so connected to love. I felt so like more present than I'd ever been before. I felt really, and that is the thing where we always have internal power.
Mm-hmm.
We always have power to connect to love. We always, and we may not know how, like, you know, like I don't connect to love every day, regardless of what's happening in my life. That's unrealistic.
Right.
But I am aware, like I have started to find that there are ways that I can, and we've talked about this a million times on the podcast, like mine for love and be more aware of love than we are of loss, and be more connected to the good in our life than we are to the lack.
Yeah, that's so good. For people who are on a journey of trying to figure out how to get to that place of acceptance, what are a couple keys that you'd say? Because I hear one of it is cultivating a lifestyle of knowing that I can connect to a love that's bigger than myself, and that is part of the thing that settles my soul and helps me to walk through these things that feel big and intense. Do you have any other?
Well, I think surrender. So this is one of the best ways to acceptance for me is surrender is not giving up the desire, but giving up the belief I can only be happy when the desire is fulfilled.
Yeah.
So acceptance is not that I give up dreams or what I want for my life. It's that I give up that I need that before I can be happy, before I can be loved, before I can be safe, before I can be fulfilled. It's letting go of that. That's what acceptance is to me. And another part of acceptance is, I think you can just practically like say what is and say it as like, this is what it is. I am currently struggling with my health. That is what is true in this season.
Mm-hmm.
That is real. I am struggling with my health because there's something where everybody's longing to hear reality called as reality.
Yeah.
And so when I can just say what is, this is what is, that's part of acceptance for me. I am struggling with my health. Also, I am growing in my ability to be regulated while I'm unhealthy.
Yeah.
I'm becoming a happier version of myself while I'm in the middle of pain. I'm coming back from PTSD. Like I can say that both are true at the same time.
Yeah. I think that shame on an emotional or on a behavioral level keeps us from accepting so many things that are going on internally for us. And so I know that a lot of people in relationships will say like, I don't have a lying problem. Okay. Yes, you do. You're lying all the time. And your shame doesn't want you to acknowledge the reality of that. Okay, I have a gambling addiction. I have an anger problem. Like, again, there's so many of those things. Like when we're talking about acceptance, it even goes down to the ways of emotions. And one of the things that we can begin to do in our own life, which builds shame resilience, is begin to accept the reality of where we're at emotionally. Mm-hmm. Oh, the truth is, I don't respond well to conflict. The truth is, I dominate people. The truth is, I run away and hide from people. Mm-hmm. The truth is, I try to just medicate people and make them happy. Mm-hmm. And just even those types of acceptance doesn't mean I always have to be the person that's doing those things. It just goes, this is what is. Mm-hmm. I am now shattering the shame that's associated with this behavior.
And that doesn't mean that's who I'll always be.
Correct.
And that doesn't mean that's what my future. I think we're so afraid that if we accept what is, that will be a definition of who we are forever.
That'll define, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It'll define our lives forever. Like if I acknowledge we are struggling financially, then that will define we will always struggle financially. That means I'm a failure now and I'll always be a failure. Instead of like taking identity away from, no, this is where we're at. Like, oh, Pete St. Johnny, they had to go through a season that was really hard in their marriage. And so there was just acceptance. Our marriage is hard right now. That doesn't mean it'll be hard forever. It doesn't mean that we're both failures, that we got to this place. Like taking away the meaning from if you accept it, but you let go of that, the negative shame meaning, the definition meaning, then acceptance is much easier.
Right. It makes me think of like, these emotional things like, like our life is like a car, right? And there's this reality that our gas tank's almost on empty. And it'd be like trying to say, oh no, my gas tank's full. No, it's not full. No, my gas tank's full. It's no, but your gauge says it's not. How about you just say, yep, my gas tank is on empty.
It doesn't mean I'm bad.
It doesn't mean
I'll never have gas again.
No, it just means I don't have gas, and this car's not going to keep running well if I don't get some gas in it.
Yes.
Now that I realize that I need gas, I'm going to start looking for a gas station. And then I'm going to pull over and begin to fill it up. And if I don't have the money for it, I'm going to go ask people for some money. Like the help, the idea of like, okay, I'm going to go ask people for help. I'm going to figure out solutions to actually start filling this tank up.
Yes.
It's a really cool, empowered way of living. Acceptance is really, again, about empowerment inside of our life.
Yeah. Once I accepted I have ADHD, I was like, that doesn't mean I'm bad or stupid, but it does mean I have to figure out how to live with this and thrive.
Yeah.
Like I need to figure out life hacks. The truth is like the diagnosis helped me accept the truth that I had never fully accepted before.
Yeah.
And it also had, and the reality is, again, taking shame away. That doesn't mean this is my identity. It doesn't mean I'm bad. It also doesn't say anything about my future.
No. And it doesn't say that that can't be changed. Is there possibilities that ADHD can be resolved?
Totally.
Who knows? And that becomes like, I get to go on a quest and start asking the questions.
But I'm not going on the quest because I hate myself with it.
Yes.
Because I don't accept what is. I'm going on the quest out of like inspiration.
Yeah.
And if I'm going on the quest because I'm like, I'm bad as long as I have ADHD, then you're not accepting what is.
Yeah.
But if you go on the quest like, okay, I can thrive here, but I always want my life to expand and be growing bigger.
Yeah.
Then you can continue to expand and be growing bigger.
So good. Well, as we go to wrapping this up, do you have anything else that you have to say?
I think you can find where you're not accepting things around a lot of shame. Like I think shame is often, we have a should. I should know this already by now. I should have already been over this. I should have. And that means you're not in acceptance. Like one thing we can accept is like, yeah, we'll be working on issues for our whole lives.
Yeah.
Like I love my clients who are always like, I already dealt with my dad issues. I already dealt with my mom issues. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's going to pop up randomly for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean it will hold you the same way. It doesn't mean it'll have the same power. It doesn't mean it'll be as intense as it is now. Yeah. But if you could let go of needing to be done with it entirely and accept the human journey. So many of us just don't accept that we're a human on a journey.
Yeah.
That things take time to develop, that there's things that we don't know yet. It's like acceptance really can relieve shame.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really beautiful, powerful thing. Figuring out what you do have power over is also really important. Like I have power to come alive. I have power to think of different options. I have power to transform my life.
I have power to ask for help.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any things that you'd recommend?
I think that, well,
You know, I think you can notice it from shame or you can notice it from control.
What do you mean?
Resistance. Whatever you're trying to control, you haven't accepted.
Right.
And one thing I literally just thought that I got this text that somebody that I love is going through something that I didn't know they were going through. And I immediately felt like, oh, that's so hard. And I could feel myself wanting to control things. I don't want them to have to go through pain. I don't want them to have to do this. And instead, I literally just said inside my heart, they are going through something hard. It is hard. It is happening. And that is okay. We all go through hard things. And it immediately de-escalated my own body in the trigger because I'm like, no, it's actually true. I've had to go through a lot of hard things. And now they are having to go through something hard. And that enables me to be able to be present and more loving.
Yeah.
With the acceptance.
As a side note on that, one of the greatest things I ever did is accept the journey of suffering. That suffering is a part of the human condition. Like we talk about pain, but each of us has our own journey of suffering that we're on. And I've accepted that everyone around me will have seasons of suffering and seasons of celebration.
Yeah.
Like, and celebration, like they're all part of it. And I'm just like, that alleviated so much need for control. I'm like, oh, they don't need me to get them out of their suffering. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's something for them to walk through in this suffering. They need me to be a loving face and a loving voice
Mm-hmm.
inside of the midst of their suffering, that they would feel
Yep.
the kindness, the gentleness, the patience, all present within it. And
Mm-hmm.
then as I'm not worried about getting them out, they are able to find a sense of peace,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it's going to be okay because someone else isn't trying to resist their reality either.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, they know that I'm in suffering and they're not all freaking out about it.
And then when I'm in acceptance, what I can do is
Mhm.
then there's a lot of ways I can be kind
Yeah.
towards them.
Mhm.
But when I'm resisting their pain, I'm more likely to avoid them
Mhm.
or to overly
or shut them down.
or try to control them with fawning and
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hope this gives you guys, acceptance is like a big sigh to me. A lot of it feels like that's what it feels like when I enter
Yeah.
into acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think if you can accept, there's going to be challenges in life. One of the things, like we're talking about that balance. I'll wrap up with this, but we're talking about the balance. You're like, life, there's going to be suffering. We do believe that, but we don't believe that like you have to be stuck in suffering or that there's no hope in suffering.
Right.
Like we actually believe so much transfer, like often suffering enables us to get free from suffering.
Yes.
Like often my hard season liberates me from a thing that was causing much more suffering than I was even aware of.
And often a lot of the suffering that we feel in life is
Our
the
resistance.
resistance.
And now we are full circle.
There we is. If you've been listening to this and you know about our life consulting masterclass and you're intrigued and would like to potentially participate in that year-long school of transformation, and
whether you want to be a
equipping,
life consultant or not, we have so many people do it just to get whole.
you can email us at support@stumvalconsulting.com and just ask to be put on the list for when we do actually launch applications. And besides that, I just want to say, like, if you're being impacted by anything we've been doing, I know we have so many episodes out there. And if you haven't had the chance to rate and review on iTunes or some format like that, please do that and take the time to share. Because it's such a big deal to get. It means so much to us, and it gets the message out there, and it equips and helps other people as you share it in social media and privately through conversations. And it's a great way to develop relationship with other people, to share it and then be like, let's discuss this episode together.
Yeah. I was just thinking, we have 2 courses right now that you can get. One is the Father Series and one is the Compassion Project. You can go to www.justinandabi.com to get either of those. But the Compassion Project is because shame comes with so much of the resistance. Compassion is how I combat shame, and learning how to see the world in a compassionate lens dramatically changed my life. Learning how to interact with myself in a compassionate way, learning how to create a relationship with myself that had compassion in it. And then obviously the Father Series is a great tool to go on if you have any pain from your dad or not having a dad, whatever it is. It's a step-by-step learning how to accept what is, what you actually went through, accept what happened, and then change the things you can actually change. Wow, that actually
that's
now that I'm like,
so
wow,
well.
that was good.
Well done,
Yeah. So justinandabi.com. The Father Series really does. It helps you accept what is and heal in the areas that you have power to heal.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm going away now. I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah. Woo!
Bye, everybody.